are, yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me when everyone's here and we'll get started. So of course, first thing you need to do is wet your watercolors. I was just playing around this morning with my paints while I was waiting. I have the same brand that you guys have, only I have the 36 colors. And it's a really nice set. Like I said, I've had this 2 years. It shows very little wear and tear for 2 years. And I love the colors. I think they're really great. So if it's, and it was not expensive. I asked for it as a Secret Santa gift, actually. So I think it was in the $30 range, less than 40. Right around there somewhere. So if it's something that you think that you're going to continue doing, I would encourage you to start with something like this. When you get this, you can paint your colors so that you can tell what everything is. And the names of them are underneath. I don't know how well you can see that. I have some glare, of course. But this morning, just while I was sitting here, I decided I was going to paint my colors. And I did this totally dry on dry. I just started with my first color and just made these little circles just for fun. Sometimes it's fun just to mess around with no outcome intended. And you also get to see your colors when they're next to one another, which is nice. So just something fun to do. But we want to finish our landscape. Do we have all 10 of us yet? Do you know? Are we all here? We have 7.
We have 7, but 3 of them are us, so 4 participants.
Is it 10:30 yet?
Yeah, it's 10:34.
Okay, so we'll just start and people will come as they come. So our goal today is to finish this landscape. Okay, we definitely want dark, dark, and 2 lights. I have the one right here with the Sharpie that you can see a little bit better than the one without the Sharpie. So I'm not sure exactly where everyone's at with that, but I encourage you to mix up some violet, a nice dark violet. This is my one without Sharpie. There you go. Well, nope. Why am I having such problems with the light? Let me see if the phone's better. No. Let me try. Oh, that's a little bit better. Okay. So I haven't even painted my darkest spot yet. I have the lightest, second lightest. This is supposed to be the darkest. I'm going to go over this again and make it darker. And then I need probably this color here. Okay, so you want 4 different values of the purple. And then some birds in the sky. With the birds are kind of like a lazy letter M. I'm going to mix up some purple and let's finish this up and we'll start on our little cottage. So this is the top of my landscape. And I'm going to go over this purple and make it darker because I want it to be a darker value. And remember, when going near the horizon line, make sure you leave some white to indicate the land. It's okay if it touches in spots. And we're just doing a regular dry technique, painting right onto the paper, not wet on wet, which we've done in the past. So to get your violet, you're going to mix your blue and your yellow. Your blue and your red, I'm sorry. Do you guys have brown in your palette? Anybody?
It says sepia brown.
Yep, there's a brown. You can also get a brown if you mix any of your complementary colors together. So red and green are going to create a brown. Purple and yellow will create a brown, as well as blue and orange will create a brown. Just so you know that if you want to try to get some different colors of brown, that is a way to do it.
My sepia brown and noir both look black to me though.
Okay, so I would encourage you then to mix your complements together. When we do the cottage, there is some brown in that. The nice thing about the cottage is you can really turn it into whatever you want. And I'm going to teach you how to get that onto your paper. That's what we're going to do next. Is after we finish this little mountain landscape here, we're going to get that cottage picture onto your watercolor paper. So as long as you have 4 different values of this violet color, you're good. The lighter values are in the reflection and the darker values are above your horizon line. Always test your colors on a piece of paper to see that they're what you're looking for. And I did my birds in that same violet color in the sky. Your sky is perfectly dry now, so you can do that. And you'll want to take your tiniest brush. And I just do like, can you see that? Nope, you cannot. Hold on. Let me show you on this one. There they are. That's upside down. Let me show you this way. Everyone does birds differently. Some people take actually their tiniest brush and put a little dot right here to indicate the head. You don't have to do that. That's up to you. I would practice on some paper first. I just got purple on my art. So with watercolor, the way to create darker values is by doing what we're doing, which is layering. You can layer color upon color upon color. And it's always easier to go dark than it is to go light. You can always add color, but to remove color is very hard. And once you put down a color in an area, you really don't want to go over it. The paper has, I guess you could say, muscle memory, and it knows that you painted there, and it leaves a mark. It'll look different. You can go over it after it's totally dry, but going over it when it's still damp it actually looks like you're removing color rather than adding color. So you're better off just giving it a layer, let it dry, and then going over it again. So here I have 4 different values. You can't really see the lightest one. It's ever so light. I'll darken it up a touch. This is the one with Sharpie, just so you can see it a little bit better. How's everybody doing? Good. If there's anything I'm not explaining well, please, please tell me.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Excuse me, I'm sneezing. The dark purple.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see. So there's a white line above the horizon line that you've left.
The horizon line, what you want is, let me show you the original. You can see where this is the horizon line right here.
Mhm.
You want to leave some white showing to indicate land.
Got it. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
they can touch in spots, as you can see. They touch here and they touch here, but you want to leave some white. It indicates land.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I ask you if I need to do more
Sure, show me.
for my lands, please? Thank you.
No, it looks perfect. I
Okay,
love it.
thank you.
So just put some birds in there.
Okay, thank you.
Practice your birds on a scrap
Okay,
and use your tiniest brush. You can always make them thicker, but
okay.
you don't want them to look like big, you know,
Clunky
Sasquatch
values.
bird.
Thank you.
So practice first. So those of you who weren't here right away, while I was warming up this morning, I just painted all of my colors in my palette in these little circles. I didn't do it wet on wet, it's dry. I just started with the lightest and just kept going to the next color, the next color, the next color, just for fun. And it's nice to see how they look together also. And I haven't done that in a while.
I'm sorry, the birds are brown or black?
I made them the same color as the mountains. I made them purple.
Oh,
That
great.
doesn't mean you can't make yours brown or black though.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Because ours are sometimes like our paintings are sometimes very different, like the carrots, but they're on the same topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. My carrot's lumpy, your carrot's straight. Mixed with
I'm going for paint on this.
I'm going to untape this one with the Sharpie right now. When you tape and you untape, do it very slowly and carefully. Sometimes your paper does get stuck to the tape. It happens. Generally, the painter's tape is the best.
yes. Perfect. So I've done this before and it does work great, I would say. I like those. I need to make them a little bit more as a pointy. Oh, I like
What?
pointy birds. My
And it looks like a
Ooh, keep it
golden
away.
snitch.
Keep it the way you want.
Too big, too fat.
The tape gives you a nice white edge, which is nice for framing purposes.
looks like a bunny nose now, that one.
Ooh, so not do the funny stuff.
Bunny nose. Oh, no, that looks like a Y. Yakety yak.
They're not too dark. But they're not too
All right, here we go.
They're left.
So tell me when you guys finish up with your landscape. That looks great. I love it, Ashley. Beautiful. Ooh, I love it. Nice. These turned out really nice. Good job. Okay, so your next task at hand, for those of you who are done, I'll tell you what to do. And everyone who's working, keep working. Do you have a copy of this computer paper little cottage drawing?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to hold it up to a window and you're going to take a pencil and you're going to graphite. We call that graphite the lines. You don't have to graphite the whole thing because you're only trying to transfer the drawing, not the white space, obviously. And do it as hard as you can. You really want a nice layer of pencil on this. And then after you do that, you're going to hold it, you're going to put it on your watercolor paper and you're going to tape it down ever so lightly. And you're going to go over those lines, not too hard. There's a fine line between not too hard and too hard. So what I would do is put a piece of tape up here, tack it down up here with just a little piece of painter's tape, draw your mountain, and then pick it up and look and see that it's transferring onto your watercolor paper. It will transfer. You may have to go over it with pencil just so that you can see it. You can't tell on mine, but I've already drawn it out. There, you can see. It's very, very light, which I want it very light. And our colors will be different than the one that I did originally. And the numbers will be the order that we're going to paint. So our colors will be different than this, and that's fine. We can make it however we want. That's the beauty of it. So if you don't want your sky blue, if you wanted more of a sunset, you could do that. So that's your next task at hand, to get that drawing onto your watercolor paper. A nice window is a perfect light box, a natural light box. You can't go wrong with it. And you may have to tape it just so it doesn't wiggle. And I'm going to clean out my palette of this purple. And then we'll start our little cottage. And I want you to think about the colors that you want to use, because like I said, your cottage does not have to look exactly like this. You can put your own spin on it. This blue right here represents water. This space here could all be a field of little flowers. So after you lay down a color like I have here, we could go back in and put little orange poppies and it could become a field of flowers. So you can really get creative with this. And if you do it and you don't like it, it's okay because you have this and you can redraw it. A lot of things I paint numerous times until I get it the way I like it. How's everybody doing? I hear you graphiting. I hear the graphiting. That's a good thing. So once you get, is anybody having problems getting their picture on their watercolor paper? Okay. Nice. Oh my gosh, awesome. You're good. Good. Everyone tell me when you're ready. I mean, we could start and do this in stages, however, everyone can work at their own pace. As you can see on the computer paper with the outline, number one is your sky. And you're going to do your sky a wet on wet technique like we did last week with the landscape. So you're going to use a flat brush and you're going to apply water and be very careful going around the mountains. You know, make sure you go right up next to the mountains and not over them. You can't really see my paper, but you're going to do a watercolor. You're going to put water on here. But before you put the water on here, I want you to decide what color do you want your sky. Do you want it a stormy day? Do you want it a nice bright blue sunny day? So you're going to mix up some color and test it out. Test your color out. I'm just going to make mine a nice blue. So I'm going to take some of my blue. Now, Kevin, you only have one blue, which doesn't leave you a lot of choices. But you can add, if you want to make it a purpley blue, you could add some purple to it. You can use a couple different blues to indicate different, you know, some clouds. I'm just going to mix up a couple different blues here.
So do you generally work from the top of the page to the bottom? Or
Many times, yes, and a lot of that is because of dragging your arm. You know, you have to be careful that you don't, you know, hit the palm of your hand into your paint. But
right.
The beauty with watercolor is you can turn the paper any which way. So a lot of it just depends on the technique. So for example, number one, we're going to do wet on wet. This little river here, number 13, I'm going to do wet on wet. The rest is pretty dry. So you just want to make sure that you keep your sections away from one another so they don't bleed into one another. So a lot of it's just mapping it out, you know, mapping it out in your head, you know, which colors are wet and which colors are dry so it doesn't flow into one another. And a lot of it just depends on the painting too. I can show you some other paintings I've done around here that, you know, it just depends. Here, I'll show you some poppies I did. So I did these about a month ago. And I decided to frame them. these, all the flowers are wet on wet. So I did that first. Then I let it dry, I left it alone. I came back and I put in the greenery because now these were dry. And then last, I put in these little black dots for the poppies. So a lot of it just depends on what you're painting, where you
There's a lot of
start.
white space there too.
Yes, there's a lot of white space. Actually, I'd like to redo these and make it many more poppies, but I put it in a frame because my wall had some space, basically. And I can show you something else I did. And I'll show you one more because this I did a very long time ago, right when I started getting into watercolor. And I've always loved quilting, but have never been much of a seamstress. So this is a quilt pattern. So none of this was wet on wet. This was all very dry, but I did the stars first, all these stars first, and then worked my way around based on where it was wet. But this was a type of painting where you work on it, you leave it alone, you come back the next day. So a lot of it just depends on your subject matter and what you're doing. All right, so let's start. Is everybody ready to start with your sky? I'm going to just get some clean water. Okay. Water. All right, so we're going to start our sky. We're going to use a flat brush and we're going to do a wet on wet technique to get the sky in there. Is everyone ready to do that? Okay.
Not yet.
All right. Take your time. I'm going to put my sky in just so you can see what it looks like. Now, I don't have my paper taped down because it's in a block. If your paper is not in a block, you need to tape it down to a board. So I'm wetting my paper, I'm making sure I work somewhat quickly and I'm not going over my mountains. And if you hold your paper sideways, you can see where it has the gloss, and the gloss is the water. I'm going to make this sky much more vibrant than my last sky. And I want this one to be really colorful. All right, and I'm gonna, as always, I'm gonna start with my lightest color. Because you can always go dark. Once it's dark, it's hard to take away. I'm adding some very light streaks of light blue in here. It's very light. You can barely see it. So I'm going to go darker. And I don't like that flat brush for that. I'm going to go back to my round. I'm going to blend it out a little bit with water. I'm going to take some water and I'm going to go next to these dark spots and I'm going to blend it out and drag it down a little bit to meet my mountains. Here I have some pooling over here of water. So I may take my paper towel and grab some of that up. Trying to get some really dark spots in here. And you have to work kind of quickly because you want the paint to flow. And once the paper starts to dry, it's not going to flow. It's just going to lay there right where you put it. Because I want it to look like clouds kind of swirling. Let me hold this up so you can see it a little bit better. Can you see that okay? You can see I'm puddling right here. I've got a big puddle going on. So I'm actually going to grab my paper towel, just a corner, piece so big, and I'm just going to dip it right to where the paint is pooling. You guys see that okay? And when I tilt my paper up, then it really pools. So that's why I'm taking the paper towel and getting all that extra water off of there. That's probably one of the hardest things to learn is how much water to use, what is too much, what is not enough. But the beauty is you have a piece of paper towel and you can remove excess. Can you guys see that okay? So that's my sky. And you can tilt your paper both ways to make the paint flow a little bit. I mean, you can put some other colors in there if you wanted some purple in your sky, if you wanted whatever colors. Some it could be a sunset, it could be a sunrise. It's not better. Let's see. Better. Better. Is that better for you guys? I'm adjusting my light. Is that any better?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Maybe I had it too bright. So that's my sky. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm okay with it the way it is. So get your sky in there. Like I said, there's not a wrong sky. You can't do this wrong. It could be a sunset, it could be a sunrise, it could be a blue sky day. It could also be a stormy sky day. It could have some grays in there. You could wash out some black and make it gray and make it a stormy day. I'm going to wipe my palette because I'm going to go on to, I want my roofs, number 2 and number 3. I want them to be much brighter than my first painting that I did. I want them more of a, I don't know, I want them, this is more kind of like a red with some brown in it. I think I want them more red, kind of like a little barn out in Sussex County instead of French country. Try some red. So I'm going to wipe up this blue out of here, get rid of it because I don't need it. And like I said, you can use a glass plate. You can use anything as a palette. You can use a paper plate. As long as it's white so that you can see your colors, that's all that really matters. You don't have to buy anything fancy. I'm going to get some more paper towels. So I'm going to play around with my reds now. I'm going to mix up some red, but I'm going to add some brown to it. I don't want these roofs to be really dark. Okay, you want a medium value, but I want them to be a little different than what I have here. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to get some more paper towels. So we're definitely not going to finish this today, but that's okay because we're going to finish it next week. And then maybe have time to do something, maybe a quick little floral. All right, so now I'm going to mix up some red, some reddish brown. And this, the roofs are done dry on dry. It's not a wet on wet technique. It's a totally dry technique. And I would use a small brush. Mixing the colors is really half the battle, is getting, getting the colors you want.
That's what I'm finding, Susan.
Yeah, it's
I'm having a lot
definitely,
of trouble with the colors, I think.
well, and you also have a limited palette. So I would encourage, if it's something that you think you're going to do some more, and even if you're not, a $35 investment will make your life a lot easier, and you won't be struggling with creating the colors because they're right here in your palette. And then you can still work with them to create different values, and it will make your life easier. Mixing color is very, very hard, very hard.
Well, I do have a blue.
Right. But
How
the blue,
significant is it to have both blues?
well, which blue do you have? You don't have the phthalo, do you?
Well, there's a Prussian blue and a deep ocean blue.
And which one do you have?
I'm not sure which one it is that I have.
Let me look at mine. Your deep ocean blue is going to be more of a light blue. Is your
Okay,
blue
I think
light?
that's the one I have. They look
Yeah.
darker when they're not wet.
Yeah, and the deep ocean blue is really not a color that when you're mixing the color wheel, you're mixing a a Prussian blue or a phthalo blue with like an amaranth red and then a cadmium light yellow. So if you have if you have 3 of your true colors from the color wheel, you can mix a lot with it, but that deep ocean blue is not really the blue that you would mix.
Okay, so maybe it's not that big a deal, you know, especially as a beginner here with my color challenged problems as it is. It's maybe it's not such a big deal to have just the one.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've taken classes just in mixing color. It is not easy, and there's a gazillion colors between, you know, adding your whites to make tints and adding your blacks to make shades, and there's a lot to know about mixing color. And that's why I encourage you, just take a piece of paper and play around like I did this morning. Just play with your colors. Put your blue next to, take your blue and paint it, and then mix some red into that blue and paint it next to it, and mix some yellow into that blue to make a green and paint it next to it. A lot of it is just, like I said, learning how to mix the color. That's really half the challenge. Getting it on the paper is one thing, but mixing it is a whole nother story. So I'm making this color, as you can see. This is a red with a little bit of brown in it. I don't know. I'm trying to do this version of this little cottage totally different. I want it to look totally different. It probably won't, but I'd like it to. So I want a really red roof. I don't know. I like those red roofs, kind of like those nice red tin roofs. Once you get your color, you're just going to paint it on, and not wet on wet. So use a small brush and just get it on there. Now this brush I'm using is too small, so I'm going to quick trade it out for a bigger one. Because you want to get the paint on the paper while everything is wet. Otherwise, you're going to see lines. You're going to see lines of where you've painted and where you haven't painted. And you don't want that. So there is a work quickly type of restraint here when you're doing the dry on the dry. So here's my one red roof. I like that, okay. And I'm not going to touch it, because if you touch it, it's going to show. It's going to show that there's a mark. Now this roof, the next roof, I'm going to make just the slightest bit different because it's a different house. Not all houses have the same roofs. I might make it a little browner. So that is a little bit browner. Can you see that okay? So this is what we have so far. That's what I have. Can you see that okay? And I can paint upside down. That doesn't matter to me. All right, so now I'm going to do my second roof. Make sure you load your brush with enough color. Drag it out. And I've got some kind of lint in there, which happens. And I don't have a nice straight line here, so I'm going to go back and straighten that up a little bit with the tip of my brush. Okay, so there's my two roofs. One is redder than the other. And that's fine, that's what I wanted, a little different. Now the next, how's everybody doing?
Having a little trouble seeing the lines. Maybe I didn't press quite hard enough.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem, and sometimes you have to go back over it with a pencil, just so that you can see them, so you can paint them. So if you need to stop and take a break and go back over your lines very lightly with the pencil. In this case, our pencil lines probably won't show too much because we're using enough color, as long as they're not too dark. So we're going to do the faces of our little cottages next. In the original, I have them kind of like a yellow green and almost like a very faded purple there. I'm going to do them, kind of yellow this time. And we're going to leave the fronts white for right now. We may go back and give it a swipe of color later, but for right now, we're going to do this section here. Hold on, you can't see that. We're going to do here, here, and here. On your paper, it is labeled 4 and 5. And like I said, get creative. This does not have to be exactly the way I'm doing it. Worst case scenario, you don't like it, you can paint it again. So we're going to do 4 and 5. I'm going to leave this red that I mixed up because we have to go here and do this side of the roof. Hold on, let me show you. We have to give a line right here on this side of the roof, and it's got to be darker. So I'm going to make it a touch darker than this, and I'm going to just paint that in, just to indicate the eaves. I don't want my brush really wet. Let me show you that. So that is darker than here, and it would be darker because it's the underside of the roof. Everybody see that okay? How's everybody doing? Are you doing okay? Everybody doing okay?
Mm.
Okay, so now I'm going to start mixing up my colors that I want for my house. Morning. You working? So I'm thinking I want a yellow. I surely don't want this very vibrant lemon yellow. I'm going to tone it down a little bit. And I need my practice paper. I'm coming up with a more mustard color, but I'm making my paints much more vibrant than the first one I did. It may turn out terrible. I don't know. I'm going to try it. More of a mustardy yellow. And I'm going to have two different values of this. I want one darker and one lighter. So the house in the front, I'm going to make it a little bit darker, and the one here, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm going to do the house to the far left first. Cottage house. And I'm going to paint around the window. I'm actually going to lighten up my window with my kneaded eraser just a touch. And I'm going to turn my paper sideways. It's the beautiful thing about watercolor. And everything should be dry enough there that you shouldn't have to worry about touching it or getting too close to it. Ever so carefully. Doing the front. Okay, rather quickly. All right, so that's that one. Can you guys see that? And the one in the back, I'm going to make lighter. I'm going to wash out the same color I just created. I'm going to wash it out by adding some water to it. I'm going to test it on my tester. And the other thing I'm going to do, if you look on your piece of computer paper I gave you, on the face of the house, it says number 4 here. You're creating a shadow under the roof. So you're going to take a swipe of color and put it right under that roof line, right next to that roof, with a tiny brush, a nice point of a brush. You're creating a little shadow. The sun is shining on the face of this house. You probably cannot see that. Yeah, you can see it a little bit right there. I just put a swipe of color right there. Now I'm going to go and do the next one. And it's a little bit lighter. I'm going to turn my paper sideways. And again, I'm going to put a swipe of color under this roof on the face of the house, because it's a shadow. I'm going to hold my paper up to show you. Can you see that okay? There's a swipe of color here And there's a swipe of color here. Everybody see that okay? No, it's not the best. How's everybody doing? Good, are we doing good? Okay, so we've painted 1. We've painted 2, 3, 4, and 5. And 6, which was the dark roof line. I didn't do it on my second house, so I'm going to do that right now. I need my tiny brush, a tiny, nice pointy brush, nice and dry. I'm going to take a little bit of this red. And I'm going to test it first, because we always test first. Perfect. And with a steady hand. Okay. This is what we have. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, how are you guys doing? Good? Like I said, there's no wrong or right way to do this. I'm going to dry off my palette. I'm going to go get a couple more paper towels from the kitchen. All right, I'm going to clean out my palette because I want to do some brown to indicate my door. And your door doesn't have to be brown. It could be purple, it could be blue, it could be whatever color family you want it to be. I am going to make mine brown because I want to I'm going to use blues and greens. We're going to do our river blue and then a lot of our shrubbery greens. So I'm going to stick with brown because I'm not really going to use that anyplace else. So I'm going to mix up a couple. I'm going to take some brown, and you can get brown by mixing purple and yellow, red and blue, not red and blue, all your secondary colors. So your purple and yellow are secondary colors. That will give you a brown. Your orange and green will give you a brown. So I'm mixing up a little bit of brown here. I want a nice rich brown, but I want it to have a little hint of red in it to pick up from my roof.
So will you leave the other wall of the house white?
I am leaving it white because we're pretending that the sun is shining there. You don't have to leave it white. If you would like to give it a very, very light value of whatever you used here, you can. I'm going to leave mine white though. But you could put a layer of color on it, but it has to be ever so light because that's where our source of light is. The sun's shining there. So it would be lighter. I'm just trying to come up with a pretty reddish brown that's different from my roof. That's different, but I want it a little bit browner, a little richer. Yeah, I kind of like that one. All right, and I'm gonna do the door and the windows with a tiny brush. Move that one. I'm doing the windows and the doors right now, and I'll lift it up and show you in a minute. Using a tiny brush. I'm just painting in the color. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Got a hint of brown in it and a hint of red in it, I mean. I shouldn't have painted over that because this is an example of what not to do. I don't know if you can see it, but I painted over this before it was dry, and you can see that it's not a nice even color. So now I have to wait for that to dry to fix it. You see how it's got that spot in it? All right, so that's our cottage. Those are our cottages. How you guys feeling about this?
I don't know, Susie. My cottages look like lemons.
That's okay. So they're a bright yellow. That's okay.
So we traced this.
Yes.
Is this, like, what would you do to start from a blank paper? Would you sketch it on there very lightly?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I did when I did it myself. I sketched it on there. I started with the cottages. When I drew this myself, I started with the cottages. Then I did the mountains. Then I added this line here, which is kind of like a tree line, a dark tree line. And these right here, these are little bushes. These are supposed to be like bushes around the cottage. This right here is, it's just part of the foreground, the grass leading up to the cottage, same with this one. And then we have a river and some more in the foreground. So I started with the cottages. Absolutely. Because I wanted them centered. I wanted them in the center of my paper. And then I worked everything around it. So next, and I don't have that as next. What do I have as next? I have the mountains, but we can either do the mountains. We can do the mountains and the river next because our sky should be totally dry. So doing the mountains would be fine. And I'm going with my kneaded eraser and picking up some pencil lines that are on the mountains. Once the watercolor is over the pencil, there's not going to be any erasing it. But any pencil that I have, you can pick it up with your kneaded eraser. And the mountains, I did a wet on wet technique. I left the caps of them kind of white, almost like to indicate snow in the background. Let me show it to you this way. Do you see how they're kind of white capped? I'll probably do that again. I think it looks kind of pretty. So I'm going to do the mountains and we're going to do this little stream. This is the water right here. This is water. And that's going to be wet on wet. And the mountains are going to be wet on wet. Where we wet the paper first and add our color. And I made the mountains darker where they touch the tree line. So I actually worked from the bottom up. Is everybody doing okay? I can't wait to see what you've done.
Oh, my video started working. How about that?
It wasn't working before?
No.
Yeah, the internet. That lovely thing called the
Oh,
internet.
no, I could see you, but now my camera's on.
Oh, nice. Does anybody want to show me their work, what they have so far? As long as it's not what, don't lift it so it's going to drip. I don't want it to drip. Make sure it's
No,
dry
the
enough.
sky's kind of a mess.
No, it's not a mess. It's beautiful. I love it. It looks great.
Working on the windows and doors now.
I think we'll finish this up next week and then do an easy floral. I've painted a bunch of heather, not heather, lavender. And lavender is real easy to paint, I think, in my opinion. I think it's a good beginner project. We don't even have to paint a pot. We can just paint that lavender. All right, I'm going to put in my mountains. So I'm going to get rid of this brown that I used for the door and the window. And I'm going to mix up some violet. Using red and blue. There's a couple different reds here. Way too much blue. I'm going to get my tester. That's very dark. I want it a little bit lighter. We're going to add some water to it. A little bit of red. All right, I think that'll do. Again, I'm going to use my cleanest water. And I'm going to put some water down here, and that is not clean, but that's okay. And I'm going to do one mountain at a time because they are all separated. I have the water on my paper. I'm going to work from the bottom of the mountain up, which is opposite what we've done when we've worked on our skies. And then dropping the paint in. Going around this tree line here. I'm actually going to hold the paper so this kind of flows. I'm tilting my paper up when I'm doing this first mountain, and I'm adding my color to where the tree line is, where the tree line meets the mountain. And it is a wet on wet technique, so the color is flowing, which is what I want. And I want it to be lighter at the top to indicate, one, it could be a snow-capped mountain, or the sun could be shining onto it to create it, to make it lighter. So I pretty much like that, but I'm going to go back and add one more layer of dark here right next to the tree line. And I'm doing each of these mountains independently of one another. I'm just kind of dabbing the color on here. I want it to flow and be a gradiated type of look. And I do have some pooling of water up here at the top, so I'm going to take my paper towel and grab that. Can everybody see that okay? Hold on, let me hold it this way. Can everybody see that okay? So that's my first mountain. So it's darker and it goes to light. Does everybody see that?
Yep.
Okie dokie. All right, I'm going to do my second one. Again, I'm going to add the water first. And you can tell your paper's wet. Look for the gloss. Look for a glossy look. Okay, I think I have enough water on here. I'm going to add my paint. You may have too much water. It's really flowing. That's okay. A smaller mountain. Again, I'm going to take the corner of a paper towel because I have a little too much water on here. I'm going to pick it up at the top, because I definitely want to add some more color on the bottom. By doing so, I'll be adding more water. I'm going to make sure my brush is dry before I dip it in the paint, because I don't need any extra water. I have all that I need here. Going back right on the edge of the tree line. And I'm going to dry my brush and just kind of manipulate this paint a little bit with a dry brush where I want it to go. I'll go back and put a little more dark in here. All right, I'm going to leave that alone. Let me remove a little bit of water again. The corner of my paper towel. I'll hold it up and show you. Everybody see that okay? So that's my second mountain.
That looks beautiful.
Say that again.
That looks beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. Just add your color, more dense here on the bottom. If it pools, again, use a corner of a paper towel and lift up any pooling water. You don't want that pooling water. So I want the tops of my mountains lighter to indicate snow. It could indicate the sun shining on it. So now I'm going to do this third mountain over here, which is a bigger mountain. Again, I'm going to get my paper wet. I'm going to make sure it looks glossy. That's how I know it's wet. I'm using a little bit of a bigger brush to add the water because it's a bigger space. All right, I think I've got it pretty well wet. And now I'm going to go back with my violet and add some color. I'm going to fold my paper sideways. It's a beautiful thing that we can do that. So something interesting happened on this mountain. Let me see if you can see it. Let me hold it this way. Okay, there is a big white spot there, which apparently I didn't wet the paper, but I'm gonna leave it there because it looks like a little snow cap. I'd call it a happy accident, but I'm just gonna leave it alone for right now. It may look silly in the end, I don't know, but I'm gonna leave it for right now. And add more of the at the bottom, where the mountain meets the tree line. Blend this out with some water. And I think I might just leave that alone for right now. Can you hold it the right way? Can everybody see that okay? And I'm looking at my sky now and I think it looks pretty nondescript. I like this area over here where I have the darker blue. I think this is kind of boring over here, but I'm going to leave it alone for now. We can go back. Right now the mountains are wet, so I wouldn't want to touch the sky. But once the mountains are dry, I might go back and do another wash over this with I don't know, some more blues, make it a little more interesting. It's always easy to add color. It's just harder to take it away. So you're better off going lighter. And then if you make a decision that you want it a little darker, you can. How's everybody doing?
Good.
I'm gonna go clean my water, change it out. It's my one water is really dark purple. I like to have one totally clean water and then one can have color in it. My brush is here. I'm also going to wipe this purple away because I don't need it now. Oh, get down, get down. Does she have to go OUT? She might have to go out. Somebody here?
That's hot. Wow.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go clean this up, get some new water. Well, I went into the kitchen to get more water thinking we were gonna paint some more, but it's 12 o'clock. Oh gosh, time flies. All right, but that's okay, we did a lot. So we'll be able to finish these next sections. Does anybody have any questions? Is everyone doing okay? Let me show you mine again. So that's what we've done so far. Oh my gosh, these look great. Ashley, I love it. Kevin, I love it. Hold it up a little bit. I love it.
Oh, yeah,
Gosh,
that's great.
Kevin, your mountains are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I love how I love it. These are really nice. You guys are great. Yay. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Going from all these lessons.
And Kevin, maybe before next week, we can get you a different palette.
Okay, you said there's one at the library?
There is.
Yes.
It's probably Lotta's. She hasn't used it this week or last week. I don't know if she intends to be with us next week, but nonetheless, that palette should go back because you did not get what was paid for. And I think she bought them at Dick Blick Art Supplies, I believe. And I'm sure they'll send her another one.
It's just an unclaimed kit in my room, Kevin.
Oh, it is unclaimed. It's never been used?
No,
Oh.
and I think it was maybe Lotta's, and then she had her own supplies, or I'm not really sure how it worked out. We just ended up with an extra kit, even
Oh,
though I made.
perfect.
So,
Yeah, perfect. We'll definitely go trade it in, so at least you can see what it's like to paint with two blues, not one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'll see everybody next week. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. They look great. You guys keep up the good work.
Thanks so much.
All right, see you next Saturday. Bye.
bye guys. Thanks for coming.
Lisa would say, buy my art.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Everybody else enjoy the day.
Bye.